What's going on, friends and family? My name is Skylent, and today we're going to be running through the indie section, top selling here on Steam, talking about the top 10 best indie games. But really, what this is going to be is a launching point for a conversation that I'd love to have with you guys, a little dialogue that we're open up in the comments section, talking about what exactly is indie? What exactly does it mean? And I'm going to be ranting and rambling about a couple select games on here, and also a specific topic here about talking about reviewers and players in general, and just the gaming community giving way too much slack on indie games, or supposedly indie games. And when there really should be much more criticism for games that are coming out, maybe indie or otherwise, maybe even games that don't have big budgets. If it's a bad experience, then it's a bad game. I think that players shouldn't care where the game has come from, who's making it, until it's actually a great game that you love. If it's something that you actually have attention for and care about, then yeah, give some attention to the developer, because obviously they made the game and you want to see their future. Maybe, have some more experiences. But in the end, it's the players that really matter here. To me, to you, that's how it should be. The consumer is the god here. It's the king, okay, on the playing field. But anyways, let's actually go through this list, and I will better explain it as we go through. And I think most expressively, I will be able to explain here with Absolver. So Absolver is a supposedly indie, as you saw, it's the top selling here for indie on Steam. So a lot of people think it's an indie game. It kind of looks like an indie game in a lot of ways. But for me, I feel that it's got, mostly positive. Now it is only 71% as positive, but I feel that it maybe doesn't deserve mostly positive for its reviews. And I'm glad people are enjoying it, having fun. I saw some streams. I personally played it for 2.2 hours, but I'm also asking for a refund. Now, Absolver, it's an independent game. That's supposedly like how they want to market it, kind of, but it actually does have proper publishing marketing. As you can see here, there's a little bit of gray area, but Devolver Digital is a separate publisher from the developer, Slow Clap. Now, the gray area comes from the fact that Devolver Digital actually finds and curates these indie games and promotes them and publishes them, and tries to do the best job that they can, and they do an amazing job. I don't know if you saw the E3 event for Devolver Digital, but it was pretty spot on, pretty funny. And actually, if we just click on Devolver Digital, you can find a lot of games that you would probably think as indie, like Hotline Miami, Broforce, right? Absolutely, a Downwell, a Shadow Warrior 2. A lot of these games just look indie, and they are indie, but at the same time, if they technically aren't just independent and they have a publisher, then they're kind of not indie. I mean, that's what I would assume, but yeah. Anyways, going back into Absolver. So my mini review on this is that Absolver is a fun martial arts, sort of like pseudo persistent PvP, or it's PvEVP, because there is PvE elements in the open world and people can jump on you, either cooperate or attack you. A martial arts game. It's a PvP game, mainly in focus. And it focuses on a lot of combos and timing orientation. Obviously, it's a fighting game, but the servers are not good, and a lot of the game feels really sticky. Its optimization is debatable, I think highly questionable. And all in all, its experience is obviously not to a AAA degree. It had the potential, but it's not. Now you're gonna see, it seems like there's some cinematics in the game, and there's some things that make the game look really, really good, at least in commercials. But when you're actually playing the game, it just feels like not a $30 game, in my opinion. It really feels like maybe this should have been a $10 to $15 game. There's some multiplayer only games that are $15 that are just way bounds more popular and just way more better done, if I could just say that. But Absolver's core issues could have been solved with the fact that it has a publisher. So that's the thing. A lot of people are giving this game slack on day one server issues, which servers are literally just shutting down sometimes. They're giving slack for the production value of the game because it's indie. It's made by a small team. But in my opinion, that's not really fair, because it's not just a small team. They have full backing. They have publishing of Devolver Digital, which allowed them, I'm assuming, to get more investors. It means that they saw better analytics. They knew because of that, because of the publishing, that they would have a bigger day one. They would have more people involved and engaged with the game. I mean, you can just see the response that they pushed out there on YouTube for all these video creators. They paid them to actually make promotional content on Absolver. I wasn't one of them, even though I asked, so a little bit of salt there. But that's not why I'm hating on Absolver. That's why I loved Absolver. I actually asked, hey, this game looks amazing. I was one of the first people to talk about this game and really rave about it, because I like Dark Souls, and For Honor was pretty cool too, except that I had issues as well, which, oh my God, I cannot believe people gave slack to For Honor. Fuck you guys. That game had horrible netcode, and anybody who said otherwise, you're a liar. So Absolver is going to be kind of the same way, but people are more able to admit that it has issues with its netcode and it has just issues overall. But it's indie, Sky. It's indie. Same thing with everyone who makes excuses for games that are in early access or beta. These issues need to be fixed. They need to be pointed out, or people are just going to be okay with it. They're going to spend their money. They're going to play it for too long before they can refund. And then, hey, Absolver got your money. Devolver Digital in ways got your money. These guys got the money, and there's no promise of future content, and that's a big problem for online games to me. So indie games, man, is Absolver indie? I guess that's up to debate. But anyways, we ranted too long on Absolver. If you guys want to see the issues that I had with Absolver and why I'm refunding the game, despite my initial hype of the game, then you're going to want to go and just look at my stream. It's 2 hours of just clearly obvious issues. The whole thing basically was issues I had with the game. Next up, we have Life is Strange. This is a game that looks indie and it plays like an indie game, and it probably could have been made by an independent studio. And it says right here, developer Deck 9, where the fuck that is, but publisher Square Enix. No way, dude. Square Enix is one of the biggest companies in the planet, dude. Everybody knows this game is going to get a lot of attention, a lot of purchases. Even if it's a bad game, it's going to be a popular game. It's going to make some money. And because of that, because they know that, they have the analytics, just like I said with Absolver, they should be able to see some issues if the game was online, which Absolver was online, so it had issues, but this isn't online, right? So they can foresee, oh, a ton of people are going to buy it day one. Okay, well, I guess they don't have to worry about servers or anything, but they know that information. What they can do with that information is now make the game higher production. So what you're seeing here is seemingly it looks like a lot of reused assets. It looks like a lot of not good animation. It looks like a lot of not great graphics. Honestly, this game looks like a mobile game. This looks like The Walking Dead on my Nvidia Shield from Telltale Games. This looks like a Telltale game, which that's not, I don't think that's good enough. I mean, if you have a big publisher and it's a sequel in a huge game, this game is going to do great. You can make this game as cinematic as possible. I don't care how small of a studio it is. You can, from there, expand rapidly, which is even in the case for indie studios. They expand hugely, rapidly, and the games get so big and ridiculous, and their quality goes up and up and up, and we're going to see that as we go down the list. Games that have incredibly high quality because of the attention that they garnered, but this game has a publisher, so it's going to have that attention immediately, and you can immediately see that its production value is not as good as it could be. Now, it's probably still going to get good reviews. It's probably going to still be at least not a horrible game, but that's what I wanted to say on that. Moving on, The Escapist 2 is the sequel to The Escapist, obviously. And you're basically escaping from prison. Really cool, really ingenious game. Now, this is proper indie because if we actually could look down here... Oh, okay, sorry. It's proper indie, I think, but there's a little bit of a gray area, and this is something to talk about. So I really want to focus not so much on the game because this is a sequel, so hopefully you kind of understand what it is. But basically, Team 17 Digital... and then they're the publisher. So this is what really means indie to me. The developer is the publisher. They're wholly independent. They are going out, accruing investors. They're getting crowdsourcing funding, whatever. They're really making the game how they want to with the vision they want to. But here you see it's a twofer, man. It's a twofer for the developer. And I do want to mention this. So sometimes AAA companies like Activision Blizzard, right, with Destiny 2, I know for a fact that they outsourced a lot of work. I don't know what work it was, if it was just models, if it was some QA testing, whatever. They outsource some work to these, not just individual freelancers, but like entire studios to come and work on Destiny or work on some of these other games. So is the game like partially indie, or is it even extra AAA? Because the game is so high production that they actually got multiple studios coming together and working on it. So in that case, is this not indie because there's multiple studios working together? I don't know. That's what I want to talk about. That's what we should mention here. Little Nightmares is not indie, and it should be pretty clear here, actually. So Bandai Namco Entertainment is a big publisher. They are pretty good at what they do, from toys to video games. And then we have Tarsier Studios. So because that they had this big publisher, they were able to make a game that looked like this. So this is going to be kind of the inverse of Life is Strange, where Life is Strange, I said, looked ugly despite it having a publisher, and I think it should be reviewed harshly because of it. Here's Little Nightmares, which I think maybe deserved a little bit more praise than it got. I mean, it still did pretty good. But this game looks amazing. Graphically, it looks amazing, right? And it does have a publisher, so they could do that. They were able to spend a little bit more time because they knew a little bit more copies were going to be made. So they invested some time in making the game look really good. In the animations, the lighting, maybe you could say the physics and stuff like that. Just all the game, just a gorgeous looking game for the genre. When you have other games like Monochroma or Limbo or Inside, which they don't look bad, they're artistic in their own ways, but obviously Little Nightmares is kind of a cut above. It looks almost AAA. I would debatably, it kind of looks AAA to me. Like this looks like a really good game. Now, despite whatever the game actually turned out to be or not, whatever, because they had a publisher, they were able to make a good looking game. That's all I can say. AAA doesn't exactly mean that it's like AAA isn't separate from indie, in my opinion. Just like you can have a AAA free to play game, like AAA is a quality badge where it's like fully featured. It does what it does amazingly, and it's gorgeous in every way. So that's really what AAA means to me. It's a full production. Where as we move through, like Polybridge obviously is more of like a mobile game, and you could probably have a AAA mobile game as well. I don't contest it. I think Pokemon, it's on handhelds, I guess the DS, but still, if that was on cell phones, I would consider that AAA. This is obviously, it's very, very basic. Its graphics are very basic. Its gameplay is very basic. It's simplistic, though it does have some depth to it, absolutely. But this is more akin to a lot of other mobile games. And so this is very indie. This should be an independent game. Yeah. Dry Cactus, developer, publisher, Dry Cactus. So that is completely independent game that does one very specific thing well, or decent enough, right? And it really focuses not so much on graphics, obviously, as you can tell from the polygonal gameplay. And yeah, it's got some corners cut, obviously, focusing on that core gameplay. And even then, the core gameplay is more refined and simplistic in its nature. Is that a freaking trebuchet? Holy shit. Anyways, Polybridge is actually pretty decent. I think it deserves a little bit more praise. I think it's not doing so well on PC, but as a mobile game, it's pretty awesome. Anyways, so as you can see, that's a prime example of an indie game, completely independent. And now we have Slime Rancher, which is actually really, I think, it deserves its praise. Now, a lot of people said it's more or less simplistic. Obviously, indie games focus on their one mechanic. But look at this, overwhelmingly positive. It completely deserves that because look how gorgeous this looks. This looks gorgeous, but still you can kind of tell that it's kind of indie because it has very simplistic shapes and yeah, it's colorful and it looks like high quality, very polished, but it doesn't have like crazy, ridiculous game modes. Its story is or it doesn't even really have a story. It doesn't have like dialogue, voiced, anything. It really focuses on its gameplay, on its mechanics. And even at that, it's more or less a short game. Which is going to happen a lot, games like Limbo, stuff like that. So Slime Rancher, it's cool. Yeah, it's high production, but it's definitely indie. So as you can see here, we got Monomi Park and Monomi Park there. So it's a fun game. It's cool. I definitely recommend it. I have it through a shared library. So glad Icy and Ashley, twitch.tv/Icy and Ashley got it. And I've been having a blast with it. She's been having a blast with it. And it deserves its praise. But that's what I want to say, is that some games deserve more than others some praise for what they did with the money they had, with the production they had. Because they didn't know Slime Rancher was going to be huge. They didn't. It just became huge because it was good. But then you have games on the inverse of like Absolver, where they know already it was going to be big, despite if it was actually good or not. And they launch and it's got tons of sales. And then so many people are playing that the servers are catching fucking fire. And yeah, that's just how it works. And what ridiculousness. And it dares call itself indie. I don't know. And then again, it's online. Sure, we can debate that all we want. So next up, we have a game called Comedy Night here. So this game, do you have the talent to face off against other comedians? This is actually it's a stand-up game. It's basically an engine that you can jump into, and you kind of have like this little gamification where you do stand-up in front of other people. Of course, you have your little avatar, which is, it looks good. I think it looks good, but obviously you can tell it's a very simplistic game, totally deserving of $4. That's really something that I want to mention too as well. That indie games should be a lot cheaper than they generally are. So yeah, $4, really fair. Just like Who's Your Daddy or Zoicide. Those fun little gimmicky games. They might be multiplayer, but they just kind of do their one thing. They do it right, and just make sure. Yeah, okay. Lighthouse Game Studio, publisher and developer. So this is indie. Does their one little thing. It looks cool. It does it right, apparently mostly positive. So there it is. That's it. That's indie, man. That's indie. West of Loathing as well should be indie. If it's not, oh my God. And actually, let's use this as an example. Okay, so West of Loathing, it's literally stick figures. It's literally like hand freaking drawn stuff. Okay, it's hand drawn, not even colored. And it's more or less in the same genre of something like, I guess, The Stick of Truth, right? So it's a comedy art. Can you say it's an RPG kind of thing? And yeah, well, I mean, it's literally got RPG mechanics. Okay, so this is something more like the Stick of Truth of South Park. But could you imagine now? This is indie, just to prove. Okay, it's by Isometric. Okay, this is an indie game that apparently is good. It's really good for how indie it is, right? It deserves praise, absolutely. But now, inversely, what if we had a game by freaking Activision Blizzard, okay, and they published this game? How would you feel about that? With a quality of like this, with the price, I mean, it is $11. I don't think I would pay $11 for this when I could get the Stick of Truth for about a similar price. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a little bit of a difference there. So how would you feel if a giant company published a game and helped design, well, I mean, the publishers can sometimes have influence over the design of a game. Some more or less, it's good, and sometimes it's not though. But they have influence over the game. So how would you take, Blizzard announcing, hey, we're publishing West of Loathing, guys? No offense to West of Loathing, because as an indie game, holy shit, right? Awesome, good. I'm very glad it's getting overwhelmingly positive reviews. But I think in your heart of hearts, guys, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying, because a publisher can influence the game. Next, we have Sunless Skies, which is an independent game. This is going to be, I don't know if it's a direct sequel, actually. Is it a direct sequel? I think it might be a successor. Anyways, it is mechanically a successor to Sunless Sea. So the developer, just to prove it, here we go. We have Fail Better Games right here, Sunless Skies. Now, this is actually very intriguing to me. I might actually pick this up. Now, Sunless Seas is a game that I watched Let's Plays for. I didn't actually pick it up myself. However, this time around, I might play this. So as you can see here, though, instead of having a grotesque amount of cinematics or 3D assets, it's a lot of 2D. A lot of 2D that, frankly, it's not exactly evoking of like hyper quality. It's not looking like a huge budget was spent on this game. I mean, it's like simple, borders and text and, instead of voice dialogue, and there might be some voice, but I do believe, just like Sunless Seas, there's going to be a lot of text reading. There's a lot of things that are very gamey. The game, like, as you can see, it's not the most immersive game that has ever been seen before. So it looks like you can see where the corners were cut. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's an indie game. So at the same time, you're kind of seeing me excuse indie games. But could you imagine now if this was like from a giant, huge company, a big publisher like Ubisoft or something, and they came out with a game like this, which is actually the case. Like I said, like there's a lot of games coming out that are like that. They are these huge games that are like they're kind of pretending to be indie, and you're going to see it all over the place. And it's like indie's a genre now, but it really shouldn't be. And AAA and indie, do they have to be separate? I don't know, dude. These are all things that we should maybe talk about. Rock of Ages. So this is actually something that just recently came out, didn't it? Yeah, hell yeah, dude. This just came out. This is looking actually really exciting. Now, I've never played the first one, but this is definitely something that you can watch on YouTube. Like a lot, it's pretty silly. You got a rock and you want to destroy some shit, dude. It's pretty awesome, man. So I love marble games, personally myself. Now, this is probably one of the more interesting and unique type of marbly games. Yeah, so you're a boulder and you're going to be smashing some stuff. It's a bunch of ridiculous stuff. Anyways, this is a cool little game. Now, is it technically indie though? It is not. It is technically not indie. And actually, I can kind of see that from the fact that this game had a lot of commercials and a lot of it was being shared a lot on the internet. But as you can see, it looks indie. It looks indie. It's doing one very specific niche kind of thing. But that I don't think that really like you can do AAA games that do one specific thing very well, like the new Resident Evil, or we even have games that are emulating indie games, like I said previously, like Journey, technically, I don't believe is an indie game. It's indie-like, but it does have a publisher, so is it really indie? Like, these are things that we should talk about, like Soma. Soma deserves so much praise because it is indie, and it does, it's like, okay, comparing it to Resident Evil, right? This is a horror game that looks like a AAA game, and it has the full publishing of a AAA. Like what happens when an independent studio does what a AAA studio does, but better? It's like it's not the biggest company, it's not the biggest development studio, but they created a product that, to just like, if you didn't know the name of the game, if you didn't know who developed it, published it, you would think it's a AAA game. So to me, I guess in closing, basically all I want to say is some games deserve less praise than they're getting. Like I think Absolver deserves less praise. It's having issues, and it's not just a small indie game. Maybe if it was, then we could give it a little bit of slack. And at the same time, I think some games that truly are indie really need to be celebrated. And I think they are. Yeah, I do think they are. And I think that because they are being celebrated, though, that a lot of these big companies are they're being a little bit shady, and they're going around and they're kind of making these are indie games. And they're also making a lot of early access games. And you're also seeing some big companies do Kickstarters and things. It's like, do you really fucking expect me to kickstart your game when I know you have money and you know you can get investors? And then you see Kickstarters that do have investors attached to them as well already, and they self-admit it. And people are like, oh, it's a small team. They need all the money they can get. I don't know. That's some fucked up shit, guys. Games, or really the people behind the games, are getting away with too much. Right, they're spending too little money, creating too small of products, and it's okay. It's okay. They're okay products. I'm sure Absolver's an okay game. I mean, I played it myself, but really, as players, we deserve the best. And so, in closing, guys, let's just say that, in my opinion, indie or otherwise, maybe, that all we should really care about is the end product. We should care about the game, what we actually play, because in the end, we are the players. It shouldn't matter if the developer is poor. They need to feed their family. Honestly, in the end, as reviewers and as gamers, we shouldn't have to care about that. We shouldn't have to care about who is making the game. We should only care about the game if we actually like it. If the game can make us care about the game, then from there, we can begin to care about who actually made it, developed it, published it, how that all went about. But for me personally, that's why I'm refunding Absolver. I don't care. I do not care. I feel that it should have instantaneously been, with the amount of press that it was given, with the amount of publishing, with the amount of hype that Absolver had. They should have known it would be a top seller. They should have known these issues were coming. And you can clearly see its production value has also been dwindled. It seemed like, I mean, it could have been much better because they knew it was going to sell a lot of copies. It could have been better. There could have been voice acting. There could have been something added on. Optimization issues. Other than just issues, the game itself could have just been bigger and better. And I don't think it's as good as it could have been. And so for the future games, because of all 100 people that are going to watch this video, hopefully somebody will watch this and agree with me and say, you're right, Sky. Some of these games are being fucking lazy. Some of these games aren't as good as they could be. And there's a lot of independent studios out there who are really hungry to make the best game that they can. And those deserve the recognition. Those deserve to be actually played. While these other games who have, okay, it's 71%, I will admit it, but still mostly positive reviews, when maybe it really should be knocked down a peg or two, especially when in a month this is going to have 1,000 players. Mark my words. Come back to this video. If Absolver isn't grossly popular, then I will delete my channel. But I promise you, just like Gigantic and Lawbreakers and all these other games that I've ever reviewed, and I called them out. It's like, hey, there's some huge intricate issues that need to be solved, that could have been solved, but I think they're just doing budget cuts. You know, they're just kind of escaping with your money. Yeah, I think Absolver's doing that. I think Absolver is one of those games. And I think a lot of these games are. I think Life is Strange Before the Storm, I think this is a cash grab. I guess you could say that. These are games that are made with a very low budget, and they look it when they don't need to be. And you feel that. As a player, you feel it. And that's what I wanted to rant about. So yeah, top 10 top selling indie games. Yeah. Hype, keeping it alive. Hopefully. No, keep real hype alive.